Welcome to the Win Again Clubroom as part of the Win Again Academy. My name is Mark Moyer, and I'm hosting today's event all about networking. And I've got two amazing experts joining me today. I've got Sid, who I'm inviting into the room, and I've got David, who I'm also inviting in the room now. They're going to be joining us in one sec. And once they're here, there's Sid, but there we go. And David coming shortly. So I'm going to give you a quick little intro on these two fine gentlemen, and then we're going to get started here. First, I'll start with Sid. Sid is, this is going to take me about 25 minutes to go through all these things, but pretty damn impressive. He's a networking expert. He's a best-selling author with a brand new book that's just come out called Networking with Sid. And I'm assuming he's got several copies right behind him soon or eventually. He's also an international speaker. He's a businessman. He's the founder of Switch Events, which was really one of the first events I attended on this remote platform. And it's all because of Sid that I'm here. So incredible appreciation for that. He's the co-host of the C3 Chat Show. It's a podcast, has about 10 billion listeners, and just a super all-around great guy. And if I forgot anything, he'll tell you all about it later. And David Thomas is a fellow Colgate classmate. He's obviously substantially older than I am, but although it doesn't say that in the books, he's a former hockey player there, and he is now currently a financial risk management consultant. I think I did that right, at Aon. And best of all, he's got an incredible network, and he's going to talk to us also about how he makes those connections. So there you go. Enough nice stuff about you guys. Now you got to earn it. So welcome, gentlemen. First of all, I'm going to start with just a pretty easy question, and I'm going to ask each of you, and I'll start with Sid, and then we go to David. When you attend an event like this, what do you think should be everyone's main goal? What should be the goal of attending it, other than, wow, it's fun to meet nice new people, and it's great to chit chat and so forth? But Sid, what do you think should be a goal coming out of this?
Yeah, sure. So I look at networking as that one-on-one relationship, right? Now, if you're in a group like this, like earlier, me and David, yourself, Mark, were in there, right? I'm trying to kind of focus in on individual connections. But in that group chat, the one thing that I mentioned towards the end, I said, hey, I individually connected with you on LinkedIn. Let's connect offline. Because a group discussion is great when there's so many things going on. But when you're moving between tables, to kind of create that one-on-one experience afterwards, the follow-up piece, that's what I look for. So, and I've done way too many virtual events this year, as you know, Mark, and so that's my answer.
That's great. How about you, David?
Yeah, to piggyback off that, I think for me, part of what makes this platform so interesting is I've done a really good job in my own networks and got a ton of traction. But outside of that, almost nothing. It's really tricky. People are so busy. And something like this, we just, I was speaking in a room earlier, and, two or three people that we can make really significant connections, not even just with myself, but I can pass along names that could be really useful to them. And it just enables you to scale that and, dig in on with people that otherwise you might not return your LinkedIn request or an email. So, my goal there is to come away from this with, like as Sid said, make some connections where you can follow up and have, much deeper.
Oh, that's great. So one of the things I like to do, and this used to be more effective when I was attending live events, but if I knew I was attending an event that had 100 people at, 200 people at, 50 people at, didn't matter, I always tried to, in advance, really try to think about 3 or 4 people that I really wanted to sort of get to know a little bit better, and almost target them in a sense, instead of going into an event blind. Now, an event like today's, where it's possible that you don't necessarily know who's going to be there, that's what makes this this format and this platform so impressive, because you can actually preview and look at people's backgrounds and look at the different tables and see who's attending, and then really make a decision from there as to who you might want to say hello to, and sort of get the ball rolling with them. But the nice thing about events, especially on this platform, is that everybody is here to get to know everybody else and to help everybody else, and sort of raise the level. Now, one of the things that I think is challenging for a lot of people is they say, well, how can I meet people of let's say, significance, senior influencers, decision makers, that kind of a thing. And why would they ever want to know me? What's going to compel them to want to know me? Give me an example, and I'll start again with Sid, of how can somebody get over that initial maybe intimidation, like, oh my gosh, that person, she's the CEO and founder of blank, or he's the vice president of blank. How do I get past that?
Well, first, and I really appreciate that question and respect that question, because that's actually how I built my podcast. Just based on that kind of methodology, what I'm going to talk about is really I look at the individual person as just a human. In all seriousness, I put it down at a ground level. Yeah, everyone is famous in their own way, and I may be a best-selling author, but I also have a family life, and I also drive a car, and I do all my normal things as well. So, one of the ways that I do, in all honesty, is I just do the outreach. I provide my value. And recently, we just recorded with Nelson Dellis of the Netflix movie, The Memory Games, I believe that was it called. And he's a 4-time U.S. Memory Master. And it was a simple email. After watching the movie, I emailed the guy and said, I was really impressed by your performance. I'd like to interview you. And like within 3 days, he replied back. We got to know each other, and now we're on texting terms. It's a different relationship. You start understanding things like this with people, but you got to do the outreach. You have to get to know the person and things like that.
That's great. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, I think I'll pick up on one thread from Sid in particular there. I've often, after reading books, and I've advised, everybody that I've dealt with in sort of career services or those, career coaching type environments, if you really enjoyed something, reach out to somebody. People always love to talk about themselves. Like that's why, that's why you agree to do some of these things. You're passionate about it. There's something that you really want to share with people. And I've had huge success. The author of The Sports Gene got back to me. Talent Code, people you wouldn't expect to. If you talk about, hey, I'd love to talk to you about something you're really passionate about, more frequently than you would expect, they get back to you. So that's in that particular niche. I think generally speaking, and it's, the number 2 on my list of sort of this sort of outline I put together too for talking about networking is don't be afraid. Like, what's the worst thing that happens? I like to take it back to dating. And I wasn't always the best with this with women, but I seem to be pretty good at it in the business world. Like, you go up to somebody in a bar, you get rejected, what happens? Nothing, right? You go on to the next one. So, fortunately for me, and I'm married now, and in business, I don't have that fear. Like, and I'll say I've talked through the last 6 months, 9 months of this job. I've talked to the CFO of one of the biggest private equity firms in the world. I've talked to the CEO of one of the biggest wealth management firms in the world, and it's just simple outreach. Fortunately, in both of those instances, there are connections, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in my, when we get into it a bit deeper. That those people got back because of networking, because of them being in my alma mater groups. So that's a big thing. But I still have that thought every now and then, like, oh, what if this person doesn't, respond in a way that's favorable, or they shoot me? It's like, whatever, that's just part of the game.
Well, I think that's you're both absolutely right. The concept of no fear. I mean, it's interesting. I've grown my network on LinkedIn dramatically just by sending personalized invites to these a lot of athletes and C-level executives and so forth. But just simply, as you said, sort of drilling down to the human. And a lot of times I won't mention anything about someone's athletic background, but instead focus on what they're doing now or what they happen to be passionate about. So because they'll always want to talk about something they happen to have a strong interest in versus, hey, hey, Jim, saw that you caught a game-winning pass in the whatever. Well, they're used to talking about that. But when you say, I see you're involved with your foundation and that does great work with helping children in wherever, then suddenly they're interested. So that's all really great. And I think Sid, you said it, but maybe Dave, what's the downside? The downside is there's no downside. You started with 0. So even if they don't respond, you're still there. It's okay because, I tell a lot of the people that I coach, I say, look, it's okay to personalize an invitation to 100 people. as long as it's personalized and and it's really addressing them specifically, then at the end of the day, even if only 20 reply back to you or 10 reply back to you, that's 10 more people than you had the day before. So to me, it's all about really striking the right chord with them to really compel them to want to reach back out to you. But with that said, so what do you find are some of the challenges to attending an event like this and getting to know somebody? Go ahead. Yeah, Dave, go ahead. You start this time. Yeah.
Challenges in this, you know what? Maybe this isn't a great answer, but I don't find this super challenging. And that's part of what I really enjoy about the platform. Like you said, I think the more homework you can do and have some idea, and it's something you and I've talked about in general with maximizing this platform. How do you get to a point, how do you get some of that early introduction stuff out of the way so that people can really start to talk to each other and as people come in and out of rooms? Maybe that's a challenge of this platform. There's something, like I said, that we've discussed, is trying to figure out how to be pithy with that, or to somehow get that out of the way up front so that everybody has a feel for who everybody is, and then you can get to the heart of what you're here to accomplish. But sorry if that's not a great answer, but I find this format, I find networking generally very comfortable, and this is even more so.
That's actually absolutely right, actually. And Sid.
So I actually just have one kind of challenge in the virtual world, and this not only goes for this platform, but just in general, right? Is that one, we're sitting in front of a camera, so there are things around us that are going on. Right, it might be that truck that's kind of backing up. The other day, I was talking to somebody, and they had ambulances just going. I'm like, "What happened?" Hopefully, it wasn't your house, And
Yeah.
so things like that. So that distraction, the distraction, that becomes the little bit of challenge that I've noticed on the virtual side, because our attention span is like so focused in, but then small things happen, and we're like, "Oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do?" So that is the one little thing I'm noticing as kind of the big issue in virtual world. However, with that said, I mean, platforms like Remo, and then it just makes networking so much easier compared to the other tile-based platforms out there.
Well, you're absolutely right. And look, to me, a big challenge is really trying to sometimes make sure that I'm offering enough value to the other person that they want to continue the conversation going forward. And that's a big thing to do. And that's probably one of my biggest tips is, when you meet someone for the first time and you sort of get a chance to know them a little bit, really try to dig deep and figure out, well, how am I going to help John, Sue, Nancy, Bob, whoever it is? And what can I say to them that's going to really compel them to want to be interested in hearing more about what I do? Because yes, most people go into a networking event thinking they're putting it in, what's in it for me? What's in it for myself? And I think if you turn that around to saying, what can I offer people that can be most useful and helpful to them, then it's just naturally going to come back to you if you do it that direction. Do you have a follow-up to that, Dave?
I think you and I have discussed this previously, and the Bob Berg and John Mann, or The Go Giver, is one of the books that my sort of sales thought process around. And I really don't ever approach conversations as how, maybe that's not quite fair. I've got an agenda, but it's a long game, and it's how can I, I'm not, hey, let me get inside your insurance deck pages and do something for you. That's not where I come from. My mind is, as people start talking, who am I connected to that's interesting to this person? And I think that's more a result of the way I'm wired and who I am than any sort of conscious business plan. There's a place I want to get, and you and I have also discussed needing to be impactful and having, adding something to the conversation such that that person says, you know what, I need to talk to this person again, instead of being like, oh, it's nice to chat, but I don't even know where this thing is going. So that is something, for me personally, I sometimes have to check myself and say, okay, let's get to something. Let's make sure that I do provide value, as you said, so that it's not just a conversation with somebody that, that was interesting, but one and done. So
Excellent. Sid?
Yeah, look, I mean, both you and David had very strong points about that understanding the other person on the other side. And, every single one of us wants to make a sale or business or some type of thing happen. However, we need to get to know the person. And in order to kind of get to know the person, very similar to what you're both saying is like, you really have to understand where they're coming from, what their background is, what their story is, and just things like that. So, one of the reasons for my own personal success, and not only with this type of networking, in-person networking, or going out and meeting an executive somewhere, is I just go and talk to them. I'll give you an example. Is last week I do a lot with the manufacturing space because of my job function, and one thing I love doing is I just want to show up to their building and I just want to see what their factory looks like. And I tell them that. I'm like, look, I business or no business, I'm just fascinated by how the product, the production line works, because every company is different. And so I just want to see that. And I'll go there on a Saturday just to go and check it out. Like that's how, I'm wired, but it works, because then you get to know the person and they're talking to you. And like David said, people love to brag and they love to talk about themselves. And then through that conversation, they come approach me, or we'll just leave it at that. 2 years later, they'll call me and say, hey, you came in. You're one of the only guys I know that comes to my factory like this. And that's it. So just kind of get to know the people.
That's great. And so a lot of people are maybe not as, let's say, accomplished or as senior, or in their careers, they may be out of work or their businesses are struggling. And they may often say, well, what on earth do I have to offer this other person who's a senior executive or a business owner or whatever it might be? And then you say, well, Mark, you say, make sure you give, but what do I have to give? What are some of your recommendations on how to get around that?
Sure. So, it's very interesting because every single person has some level of potential. So one of the organizations that we host events on behalf of clients for, that I run, one of the guys on my team, when we brought him on board, his first question is like, hey, why did you do that? And we're like, look, because you have a set skill that none of us have. And that set skill, you may not exactly know it, but from that conversation we've had, you have that skill. So everyone has some level of skill, because life experiences make the person. And every single one of us have different experiences in life. So, that's kind of the way I see things. And everyone is some level of potential. I don't care what they say.
Perfect. Dave?
Well, I am that example. I think this is a career pivot for me at 38, and it's learning, drinking from the fire hose, trying to figure out insurance, and talking to people, not stepping on your network and making a mess of it while you're trying to get up to speed on things and figure things out. There's something I was very cognizant of. What I can say, and as I said, my goal is how can I help you? And that's sort of been my North Star. And I'll give you an example. I think I told you this previously. Through my connections in sports, I spoke with a gentleman who's actually a competitor in a very sort of oblique way in the insurance world. He played hockey at Harvard, and his kid was matriculating to play football, but he was going to try to find him a gap year. And the father had played hockey in France. I played hockey in France, and I had a connection. I knew a guy from my previous career that played football in France, and I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, do you know anybody? Is this even viable that you could go play football in France? It's not exactly a big thing." He connected me with two guys. I connected them together, and I'm still waiting to hear back whether he's able to get out of the country. But the opportunity was on the table for him to go play in France in Amiens for a year before matriculating at Harvard. And did I get anything out of that other than this story, which is very useful? But no, but yes, I mean, that's incredibly rewarding. And the ability to use my connections to do something like that is what I enjoy, regardless of the business end of things. Will that come back to serve me down the road in business? Maybe, but hopefully the juju in the world, just the goodwill of stuff like that accumulates, and regardless, you get some sort of benefit from it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I like to call it the karma bank, and trying to put as many deposits in there and hopefully or withdrawals or whatever it is, one way it'll come back, whatever the hell I'm talking about. But look, the other thing is this, and you guys both touched on it. We all have in our quiver, we all have networks. We all know people, and maybe we don't all know lots of senior people, but we all know people that can make a difference. So you're absolutely right. When you go into an exchange with somebody else and you ask them, how can I help you? That instantly their guard goes down because they're saying, wow, this person wants to help me out. And even if you can't provide too much help, the fact that you're offering that is automatically, I mean, to me, that's a ticket, right? And a ticket to continued conversation. And everybody appreciates that very much. So the other thing is, how do you think it's possible to use your network? So we're shifting gears a little bit to almost, when I say work for you, I don't mean as employers, employees and so forth, but how can you ask or get your network to do something on your behalf, do you think? Sid?
Yeah, sure. So there's a common saying I always say, you're right, and it's your network is your net worth. I think that's I think it's a general statement. I haven't made it up. But ultimately, one of the things is to educate your network, I found, right? And educate doesn't just mean that, hey, tell them exactly what you're looking for and what products you can sell and things like that. It's really more of get to know the network, and also get to, you can then share your data. The other thing is that, right, start understanding the person and what they're good at and how they can present, right? So if you, Mark, if I'm dealing with you, I know that you're very good in a specific industry, specific space. So I'm not going to go and tell you about something completely different. It confuses you, right? So you got to have to narrow down your network within what they're good at and how to explain things to them. And then they can also create other webs for you. I call myself Spider-Man because I just help design a lot of webs out there,
Wow, that's impressive. I like that. David?
Yeah, I think that point is really important. Understand, it's the first thing on my list here too, is be strategic in your outreach. I think understanding, some of that has to do with your target market, where are your strongest relationships. I think that's always the place to start. Getting traction, it'll give you some confidence down the line to continue to reach out to people if you do within your network and you have better traction. But yeah, I think it's even something I struggle with sometimes. Like, who am I targeting, and how am I myself to be useful in my niche, from a business standpoint too, to talk to somebody that's like, listen, I can help you with X, Y, and Z. And it's a little bit tricky sometimes. You don't know that going into a conversation. And sometimes I'll have a full conversation where we don't even get to the, what do I do, until the last 2 minutes. Sometimes that's perfectly fine. And it opens the person will open their Rolodex to you because you didn't do that. Other times, something else I wrote down, you kind of got to read the person. Some people are willing to meander. Other people are like, what are you doing with my time? Let's go. So I think you got to read that, but getting your network to work for you, there is an important part of, what's your, and I do less of this, but I know it's a big thing. Like, who do you service most effectively, and how do you target those people that you're most likely to get bang from your buck from?
That's perfect. I was there's a different technology I was involved with yesterday that's it's almost like a sort of speed networking in effect, and it was a sort of, you get 5 minutes with a person. And what was really interesting was, just as you said, David, the first 4.5 minutes were like, oh crap, I got to get everything in 5 minutes. But then we ended up just talking about, I don't know, sports or whatever it was, the Yankees or something like that. And then we were like, oh, we have 30 seconds left. We'll just connect offline, and it was fine. So that's perfectly, that's a great point. That a lot of times, I think if you just sort of share information about a common bond, some common theme, it really can sort of cement that bond. The work stuff, the networking stuff can happen a little bit later on. So that's really good. Now, before we go much further, I encourage anybody, if you've got any specific networking questions or anything else for these two fine gentlemen and myself, there's a Q&A tab on there that I encourage you to use. So please click in there and ask any questions you'd like. So that's that. And then secondly, I'm going to say that, you know, the whole, I mean, we can talk about networking for hours. There's a lot to it and so forth. But really the bottom line is to be someone who's open to sort of, when I use the term help, I don't like the word help because it reminds me of trying to help people move apartments or something, and that brings back bad memories. So instead, but it's all about really sort of working with somebody else and collaborating with them and seeing how your background, your expertise, and your network can help somebody else. And I think that, you know, this whole COVID related stuff has really sort of put up the brakes on a lot of the stuff that we were able to do because we were so used to meeting people live and in person and attending events and conferences, industry functions, etc. And then suddenly we were in Zoom, which was one person talking, 50 people listening, and then people saying, okay, we're done, bye. And you didn't have that human interaction. That's what I really love about this platform, is that it really allows for that. And when we wrap up in a couple of minutes, I encourage everyone, when we go back to the tables, to really try to use some of the tools and the ideas that you've heard in the last few minutes. So before we wrap up, I just want to say, if you please look in your general chat button when you get a chance, I'd love to see some of the comments that you can put in there that really talk about not just networking, but also really this platform and what you think about it, and if there's anything you'd change about this particular event. And I'm going to throw something else in there in a minute, but David, do you have something else that you think could be a really great networking tip that you'd like to throw in the mix here?
Yeah, I'm just looking through my notes to see exactly where I want to head with this. Yeah, so again, this is something we've talked a good bit about. And you know, Spider-Man down here is emblematic of it, I think, too. One of the things I've tried to help some of my friends that are transitioning in careers, or you know, a variety of different scenarios where networking is important, is not just leveraging your network, but understanding, how do I then leverage that person's network? So, you know, it's the spidering effect. It's exactly what Sid said. And that's something for me that is obviously it's a key to building that network beyond just the people you know, and having an ability to, and I think I was a little bit distracted in part by Renata's question, because there's an ask involved there. And that's always a little bit tricky for me, because it's not my natural disposition. Like, I don't like to say, and there's some sort of networking, you know, there's common wisdom about, like, go in and say, you look at the person's LinkedIn and say, oh, would you mind introducing me to Joe, John, and Jim? And I don't like when somebody does that to me, because it just feels, I don't know, it's forced, and it's not my style. But, and that's something that people say you want to have that very specific ask. And again, maybe I'll evolve in this over time. It's not something I'm great with, and in certain scenarios that bites me in the rear, because people, you know, want that ask, and they just want, like I said, they want to get to the point. So, but yeah, so I'd say leveraging your network and then figuring out how to leverage those people. And this is some of the athlete stuff we've talked about. There are so few degrees of separation when you start swimming in these pools. And, you know, our previous discussion, I was talking to a couple people, and, you know, instantly you've got, okay, this person does X. I know somebody that's doing that, or, you know, there's some way they're connected to it. So then, you know, you're able to make your way into that other segment. So I hope that answers the question in a very long-winded way.
that was really good. Sid?
Yeah, you know, just the question I believe you asked, Mark, was one networking tip, or did you want to answer Renata's question? Whatever works.
No, go ahead. No, why don't you throw one out there, and then I'll take care of that.
So, what David said about understanding other people's network, that 100%, I'm like raising my hand as high as possible, because that 100% makes sense. One of the things that I, as part of my kind of networking teaching, I do a lot of teaching to the younger, young professionals, young adults, and folks. One of the things I talk to them about, and I say this actually religiously now, is the follow up, particularly for virtual, needs to be like solid. Most people don't know how to follow up in person. Virtual is 300% harder. So you have to solidify your follow up. You have to ask the person, "Hey Mark, are you good with LinkedIn, or are you good with WhatsApp, or are you good with Instagram?" You have to know. Because before, it used to be like, "Hey, we'll just call you," and that was it, because you already met the person in person. Now, Mark, I still haven't met you yet, but I know Mark is very easy accessible on LinkedIn. And Mark, that, I reply on LinkedIn quicker than I reply on emails. So, then you get to know me very well because of that. But there are people that I literally only speak with on Instagram, and that's it. So you gotta, the follow-up has to really be strong, and you really have to know what, avenue is going to make it easier for that person, if that's the person you're trying to connect with.
That's awesome. That's a great tip. Wait, what is WhatsApp? I'm joking, mostly. It's the only way I could communicate with my daughter, like when she was in Spain. So that's it. But look, I do want to answer a question that's been posted here, because it's actually falls into exactly what I was going to throw out as a tip. But the question was basically, when do you bring up the ask, and how do you find the courage to change the relationship to asking for something, raising money for a fund or asking for an investment? And to me, I like to turn around a little bit differently, and I say, look, I like to be very upfront about that right off the bat and say, listen, hey, Jim, Sue, Nancy, whatever it is, nice to meet you. I'm going to be brutally upfront. What I do for a living is I raise funds for an investment or a vehicle, or I'm trying to do some fundraising, but that's not what I'm here for today. And I'm certainly not asking you for any money, but more importantly, I'd love to get your advice on something. If someone was trying to do some fundraising, what do you think would be the right way to do it? What do you think would be something that would appeal to you? And, in the past, what sort of things has turned you off about someone that's calling about fundraising? If you engage them in a conversation about what they would do if someone was approaching them for that, then you can go from there with it. And it's critical to say, I'm not necessarily looking for a contribution today. I just figured I wanted to just meet some people. Say not necessarily. Don't say I'm not looking for money. Say I'm not necessarily looking for money. But then you go in and you ask them their advice on how they might sort of react to a fundraising question, or someone that's clearly selling something. So whether it's someone like you, David, that's trying to, I guess, get clients in an environment like today, where you don't just come right out and say, hey, listen, do you have, tell me about your umbrella policy and that sort of thing. No, instead you say, look, if someone was going to be approaching you about that, just curious, have you ever considered that? Have you ever thought about it? What kind of things come to mind when you think about someone offering risk management solutions? And just get them to talk about it, and then you can go from there. I hope that any follow-up to that, or does that sound about right?
That's fantastic.
I think that's really smart too, because as you probably know, there's something diabolical there. As you're taking notes, you know how to tee that person up when you come back around and actually make that ask. So that's interesting. And like I said, there are pieces of this that are, I not struggle with. Yeah, I guess I struggle with these things daily about what's my approach, what's the right way to go about this. And my outreach email is always, my primary purpose is just to connect. So I do want to say I'm not, and I've messed with that language in the past. I said I do not have a sales agenda, and I took that out because it's patently not true.
Yeah.
So
Right.
It's I think that, and Mark, you and I have discussed that as a way to potentially diffuse it. I'm still working through the best practices for myself as I build my network.
Well, look, this has all been fantastic. I want to make sure we have some time to get back to meeting people and sort of using some of this advice live and in person and so forth. But thank you both for joining me in the club room as part of the Win Again Academy. You're both fabulous experts, and you really know your stuff. So I really appreciate you being here. Thanks so much.
Thank you.